2.1%. To discuss, I do want to bring in economist Stephen Moore. Hi, Steve. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Greta. Great to be with you.
Pretty terrible jobs report this morning. Give me your overall reaction to the numbers.
Well, I think everybody's scratching their head trying to figure out what went wrong here, because a lot of people were estimating, 500,000 to 1 million jobs added in April, and said we got, 250,000 jobs added, which is still a decent number, but it's way, way below what we had hoped for. And there's something, I wouldn't be surprised at all if these job numbers don't get revised substantially upward, but still they fall way, way below what anybody expected. Now, what's going on here? I think that we're starting to see the chickens come home to roost with respect to these very high unemployment benefits, the expansion of food stamps, the expansion of Medicaid. All of these welfare benefits that you get for not working are literally, Greta, paying people not to work. And it's getting more and more difficult for employers to get people back on the job. From coast to coast, from California to Maine, we're seeing employers, whether they're restaurant owners, bar owners, whether they run factories, manufacturing plants, movie theaters, whatever it might be, they're telling us by the thousands and tens of thousands, they cannot get workers back on the job. And I think that's one of the real reasons, because there's 7.4 million job openings, Greta, in America today. 7.4 million. That's nearly a record number of job openings. And yet Americans are not filling the jobs that are open.
And despite the big miss on the headline number today, the labor force participation rate did rise to 61.7%, which is the strongest reading since August, up just about 0.2%. The unemployment to population level did also increase to 57.9%. That's the best since March of 2020. What do those figures tell you about the current labor market?
Well, those were modest improvements, but we need a lot more improvement. We need to get millions more Americans off the sidelines. I've been using the term Netflix unemployed. These are people who are collecting benefits. And Greta, these are enormous benefits are people getting. If you're talking about a family of 4 with 2 unemployed parents, they can get, in many states, benefits that are tax-free of up to $75,000 to $100,000 on an annualized basis. It's tough for employers to compete with that. And so that has become, I think, a big problem. I have another concern on this, Greta, which is that now we've had 14 months of COVID. We're finally coming to an end, and that in the next couple of months we'll put that to a complete end. But I worry about all these workers who've been out of the workforce now for over a year. You get a kind of sclerosis of job skills, and it's going to be difficult for them to get back in the groove again. The longer you stay unemployed, the worse it is in terms of your employability.
You mentioned this, but business owners are continuing to raise concerns about a labor shortage. We're still 7.5 million jobs short from pre-pandemic levels. Employers, though, they can't find anyone to fill those open positions, that 7.4 million that you discussed. How do we fix that problem?
Well, if I were advising Joe Biden, and I'm not, I used to advise Trump, but I don't advise Biden, I would tell him, look, get rid of the $300 a week unemployment supplement. We don't need it anymore. It might have been necessary, and I don't think it ever was, but, it was more justified back this time last year. Remember, Greta, when there were no jobs because businesses had shut down. Now we got the opposite situation where businesses are coming back. They're trying to get their workers back, the ones who worked for them, back in 2019 and early 2020, and they're not coming back. And here's the problem, Greta. Those benefits last until the middle of September. So this could be a brutal summer for employers. Now, Joe Biden had a little press statement this morning with the media, and he said, well, this isn't really a problem. In fact, one of the White House people said we need more benefits and we need more government spending. That's exactly the opposite. We need less. We need less government now. Get the government out of the way, because I'm still bullish. As I told you late last week, I still think the American economy is on a nice course for a big summer. The growth of the GDP has been good. We're seeing business conditions good for employers. We just have to get people back on the job.
One of those Democrats who's saying this shows the need for more spending is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She said today this week jobs report highlights what she called, quote, the urgent need to pass President Biden's American Jobs and Families plans. Those proposals include more than $4 trillion in additional spending paid for by major tax hikes. Would they actually create any more jobs at this point?
Well, Greta, that's a great question and a great point. We forget that if you want to create jobs, and if you think there's not enough of them, and obviously the economy always needs more good-paying jobs, why in the world would you raise taxes right now? Why would you want the biggest tax increase on American employers in the history of the country? So that is certainly a paradox, right? It doesn't make any sense why you would put not just big businesses, our corporations, but our small businesses get hammered with tax increases, minimum wage increases, new regulations. Why don't we just get the government out of the way, give them some leniency so they can get back rolling again? This has been a very tough past 12 months for our small businesses. They're finally get back on their feet, and now they're getting hit with tax increases and new regulations. So I think that this is the worst time for that.
Wall Street's reaction to today's report is all about interest rates. A bad jobs report does take the pressure off the Fed to possibly need to hike rates soon because of rising inflation. What do you expect to hear from Fed officials regarding this data in the future?
I think that analysis, and I've heard that being said by a lot of people on Wall Street, I think it's wrong. I think one of the things that's happening here, because of a shortage of workers, you're seeing supply chains getting choked. And that means businesses are having a hard time getting the goods and services to the retail stores, to the grocery stores and to the hardware stores and to the businesses that need it. And so when that happens, you get a shortage of supply. And Greta, what happens when you get a shortage of supply because of a shortage of workers? You get higher prices, right? You're seeing in then the gasoline market where the truckers, they don't have enough truck drivers to get the gasoline to the pumps, and therefore they have to raise the prices because they have less of it. So I think actually this shortage of workers is actually inflationary, not deflationary.
All right, economist Steve Moore joining us to discuss the April jobs report. And thanks as always for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Greta. Have a great weekend.
You as well.